2026. Hope you've had a good start to your days. It's a bit rainy, a bit overcast, a bit gloomy out here in the UK. Typical February weather, but we're not going to let that down us. We're not going to let that make us feel sad because we have a nice, juicy topic for today. One that is a universal fear. This is one of those fears that every single guy has inside of them. And so today's the day that we're going to help you crush through it and deal with it. So, as you can see, the title, What If I Run Out of Things to Say to Her? Before I start, just a quick disclaimer, or rather, a heartfelt message to all my Arsenal fans out there. A tough result yesterday, bottling it 2-2. I mean, that's just not what you want to see, and I'm a Chelsea fan, so I would clown on you, but I actually feel bad because it's looking like it's not going to be the season that you guys were hoping for. It's funny because I woke up this morning and I saw a friend's story and I didn't really see it properly. I just saw like the, let's say, thumbnail of his story, like the preview. And I could just see a meme of Arsenal players in a bottle factory. And I thought, oh no, they must have bottled the result because I knew they were playing last night. But 2-0 up, then 2-2. That's tough. That's tough. But yeah, for all my football fans out there, if you're an Arsenal fan, my heart goes out to you. Although, to be fair, I don't think it's over. If you ask me, I don't think it's over. Anyway, I don't want to go on a tangent. We're not here to talk about football. We're here to talk about dating, approach, all related. So, this topic was inspired by my client. And to be honest, I'll say my clients because both of my current clients made this fear known to me. They both told me that this is something they're afraid of because one exercise I like to do with my clients before we actually do the in-person immersion is one second is I like to understand their fears, right? Because a lot of the time they've tried to approach and haven't been successful, and I want them to think deeply about why they're afraid. What exactly is it that they're afraid might happen or would happen, whether it's before the approach or during the conversation, as this particular fear is, or whether it's after the approach, right? And so it's important to identify these fears and to write them down and to talk about them and to talk them through to figure out, are they rational, are they irrational, and how do we get over them, right? So that we're not fighting a fear blindly when we're actually out in the field, right? So this is one of the fears that's common across the board, and I expected them to say this, and I used to have this fear myself, right? And so the first important step in dealing with this fear is to actually ask ourselves, why am I afraid of blanking in the first place, right? And so I love talking about fears because I think fear is such a fundamental emotion that drives human behavior and also prevents action, right? So it can be a motivating force that pushes us forward because we're either afraid of because we're afraid of something, so we're kind of running away from some sort of perceived fear or real fear. And it can also paralyze us, right? It can paralyze us, it can stop us from doing something that we really want to do because we have all this associated danger with you know this fear manifesting or coming to light, right? And so I think it's always really interesting to ask ourselves, why are we afraid of blanking, right? Why are we so afraid of not knowing what to say? I mean, is it the end of the world? Are you going to get eaten by a tiger? Are you going to die? No, you're not. So I think the first reason is because we just don't want to look stupid, right? We don't want to look stupid. We want to have this smooth, natural looking conversation or natural sounding conversation where we're just a poet, right? Shakespearean, and we're just flying away, flowing conversation, just always have something to say, always entertaining her, always, keeping the conversation going. And, we don't want to be the guy who doesn't know what to say because it makes us look stupid or silly. And why are we afraid of that? Because it's gonna hurt our ego, right? We're gonna feel. I mean, nobody wants to feel stupid. That's understandable. I don't like feeling stupid, and I understand why you don't like feeling stupid. So that's one of the reasons, right? And again, that ties into ego, right? And then aside from that, we also don't want to feel that awkward tension when nobody's saying anything, because when you forget to say something, typically the girl isn't saying anything either, especially if this is earlier in the conversation. And so there will be that, let's say, awkward, tense silence when nothing is being said, and you're just standing there, she's just standing there like a penguin. I couldn't think of any other animal. You're just standing there like a little sausage, you know, and nobody's saying anything. And it feels awkward, right? And so again, why are you afraid of that? Because it's uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable and it just feels weird, right? We feel like we always have to fill the silence, right? We always have to fill the gaps. And we're afraid that if we don't say anything, she's gonna think, oh, this guy sucks, this guy's a loser, you know, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about because he can't say anything, you know, this guy isn't worth my time, he's clearly incompetent, you know, he clearly has nothing to say. So we take that silence as we think that she's using that silence to negatively judge us or to count us out, right? And so yeah, it's very uncomfortable, and as a result, we're also afraid that after the silence, or because of the silence, because we don't know what to say, that she's just going to eject, right? She's going to leave the conversation and bounce, because if nobody's saying anything and you don't know what to say, then she'll feel like, I'm wasting my time. Why am I here talking to this guy? I have a dinner to get to with my girlies. You know, I need to go finish shopping at Zara. I need to go do this grocery shopping. I forgot to buy broccoli last night. She's got her plans. She's got places to be. It's a little bit rainy, and she's here talking to this guy, and he doesn't know what to say. Why is he wasting my time? And so you're afraid that if you don't have anything to say, if you don't have anything to keep her there, to keep her planted, that she'll just bounce, and then you'll just be left standing there by yourself with your dick in your hand, and the violin music is playing in the background, the sad violin music. And so that's another fear, right? And so, and then the final fear, I think, is just we are afraid of her opinion, right? Or not even that we're afraid of her opinion, but we're so attached to her opinion that we want it to be a good opinion, right? We want her to like us, we want her to be entertained by us, we want her to think that, again, we are this cool, suave, smooth, natural guy who always knows what to say and has this great conversational ability. And we build this idea up of our ego in our heads, and we project it onto her. So we want her reaction to validate that, right? We need her to feed that ego. We need her to feed that idea that I don't blank. I'm the kind of guy who can talk all the time and say something and always knows what to say. So we're afraid that if she doesn't validate that ego, and ultimately if she if she reacts in a way that basically invalidates the ego, right? And her opinion of us seems to be negative, i.e., she kind of like she kind of like scrunches her face, or she says like, is that it? Are you gonna say anything? Like, do you have anything else to say? Like, if she has that reaction, then yeah, we're afraid of that opinion. We're afraid of her negative opinion of us, right? So, all of these fears are, again, they're legit. I get it, and I'm not here to undermine them. I had the same fears, so but at least now we have the fears on the table and we actually know what we're really afraid of, right? Because there's always a fear behind a fear. Because you say you're afraid of blanking, and I write the title, but I know what's actually going on beneath the surface, right? And I think that's where we need to sort of, let's say, address this topic. But now that that's in the open, let's actually try and figure out why we blank, right? So why do we blank, right? Why do you blank and why don't I blank? Because nowadays I rarely blank. To be fair, sometimes I do. I'm not perfect. But 9 times out of 10, I don't blank. And why is that? Well, let me rewind and put myself back in my older, amateur, self when I was first learning the skill set and before I got coached, because this gives me insight into why I was blanking, because I've already crossed the bridge. I've already gone from amateur to, you know, expert essentially, right? And I've got the results. So when I look back, the first reason is purely because I was nervous, right? I was nervous, and I was nervous because, again, like I said, my ego was wrapped up in her reaction. And, you know, think about it. Once you have the girl in front of you and she's actually stopped and she's actually taken your compliment fairly well, then now it's like, it feels like it's game time, right? Because imagine when you first start out with the skill set and it's fairly difficult to get the girls to stop, and you're not really having too many conversations. And even if you do get the girl to stop briefly, a lot of those girls, maybe they're not interested and they just tell you flat out, yeah, I've got a boyfriend, or I'm not interested, but thank you. And so, you know, at the start, maybe you rarely get opportunities to have these conversations actually go for longer than a minute and a half or longer than 2 minutes. So when you find yourself in that situation where the girl's attractive, she seems to be receptive, she took your compliment well, and she's standing there, right? So let's say she's actually standing there, like your feet are pointed towards her feet, you're looking at each other, she's engaged, she's not like looking at her phone, or she's not like kind of turning away, like giving signals like, you know, I'm trying to go, so wrap it up, guy. No, she's actually stood there giving you her full attention. That is a, to you, that will feel like a once in a lifetime opportunity, right? You're like, oh, this could be the one, this could be the one. You know, and you're gassed. And so there's that excitement as well. It's not just nervousness, it's excitement too, right? So you're excited, but you're also nervous. And I get it, because now you're taking it too seriously. Now the stakes feel high, and you feel like you have to perform at your best, which of course is tough because you want to perform at your best, but you're still a novice. You still haven't put in that many reps, right? You're still fairly inexperienced. So, you know, putting that expectation, putting that pressure on yourself to perform because this is like the once in a lifetime opportunity, or at least it feels like that in your head, that's going to sabotage you, right? And so when you put yourself in that mindset, what's really going on there? Like, let's really think about it, right? Because the I think the ingredients, or the main ingredient of a good conversation, is being present. I'll say it again. The main ingredient of a good conversation, or a good conversationalist, is someone who is present. And if you're present, you're listening, and you're just there. You're not thinking 2, 3, 4 steps ahead. You are just there listening to what she is telling you, every single word, every single syllable, and you're not thinking about anything else. You're not thinking about whether she'll like you. You're not thinking about whether you're going to look stupid. You're not thinking about whether it's going to get awkward. You're not thinking about how uncomfortable it might be. You're not thinking about if she'll bounce. All you're thinking about is, there's a person right in front of me and I'm here for the conversation every single second. Presence. So, of course, when you've got all these expectations and you're nervous because of these expectations and the fears that, like I just outlined, your mind is thinking about other stuff. You're not thinking about her. Your mind isn't even in the conversation. You're thinking about, what do I say next? Okay, she's telling me that she's about to walk her dog, or she's just buying, she's buying cucumber and Marmite for dinner later. But like, okay, how do I respond to that? Like, oh, like, what do I say after this? She's talked about food. Do I need to compliment her on her bag? Or, oh, I can't say this, I can't say that. What if she leaves if I say that? What if she gets offended? It's like all this, all these like voices are just yapping away at your brain. And as that's going on, you're not present, right? And so, and again, I get it, been there, done that, I get it. So again, like I said, we're taking the situation too seriously, right? And then I think the second reason why we're blanking, and I briefly touched on it if you were listening, hopefully you're listening and taking the lessons in this live stream. If you're listening, then you would have heard me say that we are inexperienced. So this is why I said I have to almost put myself back in my beginner mindset, because at the time I was an inexperienced beginner. I hadn't had that many conversations. I hadn't put myself in that many reps. And because I was inexperienced, those conversations felt like uncharted territory, right? It felt like a sort of almost being thrown in the deep end, especially like I said, with something like cold approach, where not every girl that you approach will stop, and not every girl that stops wants to have a conversation. So when you get the conversation, it feels like it's all or nothing. And so at the beginning of your journey, you probably haven't had that many conversations. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but I'm going to assume that you haven't had that many. And you need to have more and more conversations in order to get better. And it's so funny because I've been getting more comments recently of guys saying, they're watching my infields and they're going, bro, it's so hard to imagine that you struggled at this because you're such a natural. And I mean, I kind of get it because it looks like I'm talking fairly effortlessly. I typically have something to say all the time, even if it's just another question, right? I typically have something to say. And so, it looks like I'm a natural, but that wasn't inherent. That wasn't like a nature sort of skill or a natural skill. It was essentially earned, right? It was earned through repetition. It was earned through exposure. It was earned through going in for more and more conversations and then listening to my own conversations back and then realizing, oh yeah, like I blanked at this point. Why did I blank? Oh, so it seems like I blank more when I'm in front of a girl who I consider to be out of my league. Oh, so okay, so that's interesting. So clearly there's a part of me that still pedestalizes certain chicks, right? So again, through time is our best friend, right? Time gives us that ability to just get better, to iterate, to become more comfortable, because with more experience, with more reps, you become more comfortable because it's no longer unfamiliar territory, right? Now you walk out, you have a conversation, easy. And it's funny because, people might assume, oh, like, you can have conversations with your friends. It's so easy to talk with your friends, right? It's so easy to talk with your family. You could even argue that it's easy to talk to your neighbor, but why is it so hard to talk in front of the girl? And ultimately, apart from the fact that obviously there's so much more attached to male female conversations and dynamics because there's a lot more emotion involved in this and sexual emotion and tension and that sort of thing. But aside from that, it's just a case of you haven't been in these cold approach conversations that often as much as you've spoken to your mates. I mean, how many times have you spoken to your mates on the couch watching the football? You've done that for years, years and years and years. So of course it would be ridiculous to expect yourself to be a natural and have free-flowing conversations with the girls that you approach out in broad daylight when there's all this pressure, right? So give yourself some grace, and don't beat yourself up unnecessarily just because you blanked, right? So yeah, it's just a case of inexperience. But now let's get to the juice, the meat and the potatoes, right? So this is just a prescription. And so this is what I believe you should do if you blank, right? Because it will happen. It's natural. So the first thing is to just call it out. Call it out. If you blank, just say, sorry, I just forgot what to say because you look great. Or, sorry, I just forgot what to say because I'm really nervous right now. And just say that. Don't even say anything else. Just wait for her reaction. And guess what? 9 times out of 10, the girl will go, haha, that's okay. That's fine. She'll be enamored. Most girls are really nice, right? Especially if they've stopped for you, right? Most girls are really nice and understanding. They know that this is not easy. You know why they know? Because nobody else does it. I always think it's always, here's a bit of a tangent, but something really useful for you guys to do, which I've done every now and then. Put yourself in the shoes of a beautiful girl who just goes about her life, right? She wakes up, she's about to go to the gym, she puts on her leggings, she's putting on her jacket, she's doing a bit of her hair and her makeup. Think about what she experiences when she goes outside, right? And especially in a busy, let's say, big city like London. Think about it. She's on the tube, she's on the bus, she's on the street. How many guys do you think look at her, give her the eyes, and then the moment that she looks at them, they turn away, right? So many girls experience this, and all of you guys do this shit. Don't try and fool me, bruh. Don't try and fool me. We've all done it. Because, yeah, naturally we're attracted to the girl who looks good. And we see her and we go, oh, she's pretty cute, right? Now, we're not creeping. We don't go, oh, she's cute. And then we just stay there staring there, no blink, no blinking. We're not freaking predators. We just stare, we look, we go, damn, she's fine. And it's funny because you look at the guy next to you and you kind of both go, sometimes there'll be another guy there and you'll both look and then you'll catch each other look and you go, I mean, yeah, it's kind of cute. She gets that every single day. And she knows it. She can see it. You think she can't tell, but she can tell, right? But nobody ever does anything. Nobody ever goes up to her, right? The best they can do is look and then, skirt their eyes away as if to pretend, that they weren't looking. That's the best that most guys can do. So then all of a sudden, Big Billy Bollocks comes along, right? And approaches her. Look at the way I'm walking. Sometimes I crack myself up. I think I'm so, yeah. I think sometimes my humor's a bit stupid and corny, but big bollocks Billy or whatever his name is. He walks up in broad daylight and approaches her. She's like, "What the? This is the one guy that decided to come up and say something to me. Wow, this guy's got balls." And the whole time you're thinking, she's gonna think I'm stupid. She's gonna think I'm incompetent. She'll think I'm awkward. Oh my god, if I forget. But bro, at the very least, you just separated yourself from the pack. Especially if you just did the approach okay. The approach doesn't always have to be perfect, guys. Like, I've been on dates with girls where the approach was eh. It was meh, right? So, back to my point. If you blank, call it out. She'll be okay with it because you've already displayed the courage, right? So, that's the first one. Call it out, get her reaction. And typically, once you've called it out, she will react positively. And then after that, you'll be a bit more relaxed, right? I think even in psychology, there is this idea that when you're nervous and you're feeling a certain emotion, it's actually important to just call it out to yourself. Instead of trying to suppress it and pretend as if it's not happening, it's important to, like, for example, if you're angry and you're like sat down on a bus or something and you're angry because you just got a text, it's important to sort of think to yourself, damn, I'm really angry right now. Like, I'm really, really like fucking pissed. I'm really pissed because my crypto portfolio just went down 50%. I'm really angry. It's good to admit that to yourself. Not like, I'm not saying become Hulk and start punching up people in the bus. I'm saying like you just need to own and admit to that emotion, because that typically allows you to essentially wind down the power of that emotion that it has on your immediate, let's say, mood or behavior. So that was the first one, call it out. Now, apart from calling out, I think one great, let's say, recourse, right? So obviously the first one is calling it out, which is just the way to identify the emotion and just cut the tension right there and then with honesty. But the next three pieces of advice I'll give you are all, let's say, I'll call it conversational recourse, right? So I call it recourse because it's supposed to get you back into the conversation. Because if you blank or you call it out, you don't just want to be stuck there saying nothing and be a mute or a mime. Of course, we want to get back in conversation. So this is what I typically fall back on. The first one is so there's a concept in improv that I learned when I was doing my improv comedy. And it was a framework that we used to use for some of the group scenes that we would do, right? And it was all based on these, let's say, 5 factors, which is who, what, where, how, and when, right? So who, what, where, how, and when. So in any type of scene, there's always these elements that you can draw out in order to create a vivid, rich scene, right? And so whenever you're having a scene or 2 characters are having a conversation, typically the conversation is centered around one of these questions, right? And so when it comes to the conversations you're having during your approaches, just ask questions that touch on these specific areas, right? So you're standing there and, the girl's there, you blank. And then maybe the first thing you think is, okay, who is this person, right? So obviously a who question would be like, I guess, because so who is basically, okay, who is this person standing in front of me? Like, so who could actually lead to what, right? So you could be like, okay, so like, what do you who are you? Like, where are you from? Like, what are you doing? Right? Obviously, what is more like you could ask, what are you doing, or what have you been up to? Obviously today's a specific day, right? So you could ask, oh, it's the weekend. What are you doing this weekend, right? Where is she from? Where has she just come from? Where is she going to? Right? This is all stuff that you can ask that just gives you a bit more time to think, right? How? Okay, how is she feeling? Right? It's a gloomy day today, right? It's a bit windy, it's a bit rainy. Just ask her, yeah, so how have you been? Or how are you feeling? Like, oh, how are you feeling about the weather? Or, how are you feeling about, you know, the latest Arsenal result? Maybe, for example, early in the conversation, she mentioned that, she's a football fan, or she's a football fan because her dad likes football. And then you go, okay, so how did you feel about the Arsenal result, right? And you just like talk about something that you discussed early in the conversation, right? And then when, right? I mean, when is just more time based. So maybe she says, oh, like I went to Thailand, you know, last year. And then you go, maybe you just go a bit down that track and you go, oh, okay. So like when last year, was it in the monsoon, rainy season, or was it like in the drier season? Because, I went to Thailand in November, and that was just at the turn of the rainy season, and I was so happy I went there because the weather was much better. It wasn't raining as much, although there were days where it absolutely pissed down, like raining cats and dogs. And see what I'm doing now? Like now I just have, by just asking that when, right? I gave myself more leverage in the conversation, and I was able to just build on it, right? And now she's asking me, yeah, I actually went at a different time of year. And then I'm thinking, oh, you're lucky. Like you chose a really good time. And then now we talk about that. And that's just probably added like 3 extra minutes of conversation that we could just talk about Thailand and that sort of thing. So yeah, try and maybe, and again, this just comes with experience, because you don't want to be thinking about this, like you don't want to be thinking about, who, what, where, how, when, like right there and then. So just pick one, like pick your one go-to question, and it can be from any of these 5 specific areas, right? That's why I've given you the 5, because you can choose the one that best suits you, right? So just go into conversations thinking, okay, if I blank, I'm always going to fall back on my how question, like how's it going? And also these broad open questions like how's it going, or what are you up to? I love what are you up to. What are you up to is like the best question ever, and that's actually what I always start with, because that's just gives her, it sets us in the present. It allows me to just understand what she's about, because typically you can learn a lot about what somebody's doing like in the moment, right? So again, I'm not going to tell you what to say, because I really don't want to plant ideas in your mind of me saying, say this, say that. That's not what I'm doing here. I'm just giving you a platform to springboard off on, right? The rest is up to you, because you have your own personality, you have your own interests. Maybe you guys don't watch football, so you wouldn't even care about asking about the football analogy, right? So just make it unique to you, and that's it. Next, make a comment on her appearance, or make a comment on the surroundings, right? So again, trying to root us into the present, right? Because we can talk a lot about abstract stuff, or stuff that she did, or stuff that she's going to do. But if we just stand there and remember that we're looking at a human being who's right here, so we can make a comment about her, right? What she's wearing, or her hair, or maybe she's got like an interesting piercing and you notice it. And it's great because I've realized something really cool as I've gotten better at this skill set, which is nowadays I'm so perceptive. I can see things that I never used to see before, right? So I'll just notice something on the girl, or like the way that she touches her hair, or the way that she giggles, right? And I'm noticing these things as we're talking, and I'll just make comments on them. And so I love it. I love doing that, because that just like throws off the conversation. So sometimes, especially if it's a girl who's so receptive, we'll be talking about something and I'll notice she has a funny giggle, and I'll just go, you have a really funny laugh. And then she'll be like, and I'll literally say that as she's still talking. I'll just interrupt her, because I'm just like, a part of me just wants to blurt it out and just say what comes to mind, right? which to be fair is also a great way to go about conversations. Just say what comes to mind, no matter how stupid, no matter how how retarded it sounds. Just say whatever comes to mind, right? Less think, just more. Just blurt it out. Just blurt it out if it comes to mind, right? Because we're not here to have like the most logical conversations, right? It's not a business meeting. It's not an interview. Just say whatever you want to say, right? And then, of course, the surroundings, yeah, easy, right? So I remember one time I was in London, and actually, this is when I met the girl that I'm seeing right now. And it was a very windy day. And so I just spoke about the windy day, and I was like, yeah, how have you found it today? Like, all the Lime bikes seem to be toppling over each other. It kind of feels apocalyptic. And she was like laughing. She was like, yeah, I know. I just moved to London from France, and like this is crazy. And so now we're just talking about that, right? So I just made a comment on what was going on. And of course, that's great because when you comment on the surroundings, that's a point of, let's say, rapport, because we're both here. We're both surrounded by the surroundings, right? So we're kind of experiencing this together. It's a way for us to share this moment, right? So that's a really good way to get the conversation back up and running. And there's always something to comment on. I mean, especially when you're in the city, there's always like falling Lime bikes, some guy getting his phone jacked on Oxford Street, this wave of tourists who are just absolutely pounding the pavement. You've got that loud red bus, that guy's beeping, that delivery driver's having that argument with that cyclist. I mean, dude, there's just chaos. This is why cities are cool, because there's just so much going on, right? That guy's playing the banjo by the tube station. You're thinking, oh, is he playing Coldplay? That guy should go on, that guy should go on X Factor. All this random stuff, right? Just calling out stupid shit, not taking it too seriously. And then finally, the last one. And this is one that we don't do enough. And even I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of this. Not as much anymore, but this is something that took me a bit longer to really hone in, which is talk about yourself. Talk about yourself, right? Talk about what you're up to. Talk about what you've been doing. Talk about what you like. Just give your opinion, right? Bring it back to you, right? Let's say you're talking, you're blank, you call it out, she laughs. Just be like, but yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I came down to London, and yeah, it was a lot busier than I thought, so because I live a little bit further out, and typically on this kind of day it's not too busy, but I started wondering, is there something going on? Like, is there a protest or something? And so you're just talking about your thoughts. You're talking about what you've been thinking about that entire day, or at least at the start of that day, right? Even something as simple as saying, you blank and then you go, yeah, but anyway, I'm really hungry. Like, I think my stomach just rumbled or whatever. Like, maybe you even notice that in yourself, right? You're like, I'm hungry, I want to go eat something. And who knows, like, maybe by even saying that, right? She goes, I'm actually hungry too. Do you want to, like, go get something to eat? Boom, instant date, right? Instant date, because you were smart enough to think, you know what, I blanked. Let me just talk about myself, talk about how I feel, talk about what I'm up to, or just talk about what you do. Yeah, give her a peek into your life. Now, of course, sometimes it can feel like, yeah, but Ian, if I just randomly start talking about myself, it doesn't seem like it sort of flowed naturally from the previous topic. I think we have this fear, and oh my God, I need to be honest about this. I'm so glad I just thought about this, because I wonder if you guys get this or you feel this too. One of the things that I used to put pressure on myself to do was I always felt like I had to have a perfect segue from topic to topic, right? So whenever I was having conversations, I always felt like I had to segue into the next one, and it had to be this smooth transition. And I don't know where I got that from. Maybe it's just because I maybe watched guys who were very performative when I maybe first started seeing content, or at least before I came across the guys I relate to now. And so I wonder if it's that, or maybe a part of me, because I love English literature, I studied it in uni. I studied it in A levels, and I'm into writing and reading and novels. A part of me feels like, or at least a part of me used to feel like, I need to be poetic. and really smooth. And so that means transitioning really well between topics. But yeah, that was something that really tripped me up. So, and again, for the reason that I said before, right? Because now I'm thinking too many steps ahead. Now I'm thinking, okay, how do I segue from this topic to that topic? It's like, nah, just say whatever comes to mind. Because even on dates, I've realized that on dates, I just say random stuff. We'll go to this topic, then that topic, then this topic, then back to that topic, and it's just like chaos. And those are the fun dates. Those are the best dates, because she feels like she's just been on a roller coaster, and I'm enjoying myself too. And this is all natural. It's not performative. It's just, like I said, you're just saying what comes to mind. But talking about yourself is good, because again, she needs to know who she's in front of. She wants to know a bit about you, and that will actually probably help you. That will help you, let's say, get the details or set up the date, because she wants to know who she's in front of. You're better off talking about yourself rather than leaving it for text, or leaving it, to Instagram when she goes in your profile, right? Talk a bit about yourself, and obviously, like, stuff that's more positive or more endearing is always a good place to start. So yeah, that's it, boys. If you're blanking, hopefully that is enough for you to get the ball rolling. I intentionally did not want to give you lines or routines. I've just given you examples, but by no means take that as I have to say this. Just use the framework I've given you to then apply your own unique perspective on it. Otherwise, yeah, got some nice likes on this one, but yeah, I like this live stream. This was a good one. This is one of my favorites, because I think it'll be really helpful. So good luck in your conversations. Don't take it too seriously, guys, okay? Like, you'll get better over time. Just give it time, be patient. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.